Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ after me. Happy St. Patrick's Day, church. We're not in Chronicles. We're in Matthew, chapter 5. Ooh, things are getting hard. So, once again, we find ourselves in the Sermon on the Mount. Not a list of rules, but examples of how God's standards are so very high, higher than ours, higher than the heavens. And we'll never practically be perfect, just as our Father in heaven is perfect, and yet that's what God has called us to. It's a reminder that we've been asked to hold to a standard that we're unable to hold in and of ourselves, and yet God is able. He is able to work through us. And so here we go. Now, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. Exodus 21:24, Leviticus 24:20, Deuteronomy 19:21. Lex Talionis? It's the law of the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And, right off the bat, that was never intended to be a command that we follow, where it is supposed to be, if you pluck out my eye, then I must pluck out your eye. But it was really a limitation on discipline and consequences and whatnot, so that people don't do what we would naturally intend to do, which is simply, you poke my eye and I'm going to poke both your eyes, right? You scratch my car, I'm going to scratch your car and slash your tires. That's just the way revenge works, is we typically try and, go bigger than the offense or crime that was committed against us. And so God commanded, again, not that you had to do these things, but that you were limited. The crime or the punishment can't be worse than the crime. That just doesn't make sense. So that's a proper teaching, right? But back then, Pharisees and whatnot teaching people that, yes, if this is done, then it must be done in return. We must give an eye for an eye. We must give a tooth for a tooth. And so Jesus is now trying to take that, and he's going to expound on that. And this is where stuff gets real tough. But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. So right off the bat, we're not talking about necessarily, a literal thing. I even have some notes here. John 18:22-23. What does John 18:22-23 say? John 18:22-23. I think I know where I'm going. When he had said these things, one of the officers stood by and struck Jesus with the palm of his hand. Jesus got slapped on the cheek. Go figure. Do you have an answer for the high priest like that? And Jesus answered him, if I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why do you strike me? So Jesus didn't just say, hit me again, right? Acts 16:37. But Paul said to them, they have beaten us openly. Uncondemned Romans have thrown us into prison, and now they put us out secretly? No, indeed. Let them come and get us out. When he got thrown in prison, Philippian jail, right? The door is open. What must I do to be saved? Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. So we're not talking about a literal slap here in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus isn't giving self-defense lessons, and nor is he saying that you should let someone physically harm you, okay? But here's the funny thing. I know the camera's reversed, okay? But this is my right hand. And most people on earth are right-handed. Yes, we've got our lefties out there. Let's pray for them. But right-handed people. So if I come to slap you, whoosh, okay, where are you going to get slapped? On your left cheek. But this says if someone slaps you on your right cheek. So it's not a normal slap. In fact, for me to slap you with my dominant hand, and I'm just going to go on the limb that we're talking about dominant-handed people here. There's a couple things, Peter cutting off the ear of Malchus, right? Because if Peter's right-handed and he cut off his right ear, that means that Malchus was probably turned around and Peter was getting at him from behind. It's funny, these little things you can pick up. For me to slap you with my right hand on your right cheek, I would have to be coming at you with a backhand. And traditionally, a backhand is an insult. To backhand someone, it's not an attack. It's not something you're trying to inflict pain with, right? I mean, slaps typically aren't pain either. But anyway, you never have ever seen anyone backhand someone in a fight where they're trying to hurt someone. A backhand is an insult. In fact, it's a, what is the word I'm looking for? It's not a metonymy. It's symbolic of an insult. Backhanded. That's just a phrase we use. There's a specific word I'm looking for, a grammatical word, right? But it represents an insult. So now what are we looking at? We're not looking at people being physically attacked. We're looking at if someone insults you. My sucker punch. If someone insults you, not assaults. If someone assaults you, you defend yourself. You protect yourself. Why? Because you're God's treasure. And God doesn't want you harmed or lost. You defend helpless people if they're being attacked. You do it with whatever force is necessary in order to defend the person, because the sanctity of human life is something that God treasures from conception until he takes them home. So back to insults, not assaults. If you've been insulted by someone, well, buck up and give them the other cheek also. Now, he's talking about not to resist the evil person. You see, Sandy Johnson had a beautiful idea yesterday, I believe it was. At least I saw it posted. I had that little flow chart. I took someone else's and I added to it, right, of what to do when someone offends you. And we talked about how it's like you can go and gossip and basically tear down the entire church. And that's what gossip does. When we talk trash about people, it undermines the foundation of the whole church. And even I have to be careful because we're prone to complain. Or you can take it to the Lord and pray about it and get God's peace concerning that situation. But if you take it to the Lord and it's like, Lord, there's something not right here. Well, in Matthew 18, it talks about brothers. This says evil person. Matthew 18 is brothers. You can go to a brother and confront them about this sin that they've committed against you. But the evil person, there's no way to godly reconcile that. And I'll tell you guys the honest truth. Rebuking the evil people, unbelievers, it's pointless. They'll get plenty of a rebuke when they go to hell. So, why not save them from that? Because probably you would say, for the most part, the offenses that have been done against you, insults, right? Not physical attacks, not gross acts of wickedness, but insults. You probably don't want anyone going to hell just because they insulted you. And so Jesus says, turn the other cheek. I think this is actually in context with unbelievers that, just suck it up and just let them be them. Maintain your witness. Don't burn the bridge that allows you to cross over and win people to the gospel. And so, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, again, it has to be a backhand for my dominant right hand to get to your right side of your face, or a really weird hit. And then it goes on. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. This is going to get touchy. So in Exodus 22, it talks about how this outer cloak, it was something that no one could take from you. It was kind of like a blanket, right? And so it's something you got to wear at night to stay warm. And it talks about how if you take it as an assurance, like, okay, you're going to borrow my car, because that happened a lot in Jesus' time. They all had one accord, and there was only one accord, and so they were very careful if they ever loaned out the accord. We're going to take your outer cloak because it's important. But by law, they could not hold it overnight. They had to give it back. It was that important. But this says if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, give them your cloak too. But my cloak's my right. The law says they can't take my cloak. And Jesus says, yeah, that's right. Be willing to lay down your rights. And this is something that Americans really struggle with. I know there's people who actually watch this who aren't American, and maybe your country struggles with this too, but we're the land of the free and the proud. And boy, oh boy, can we be proud. And we're all about our rights. And really, Jesus, who didn't consider it robbery to be equal with God, right? He humbled himself and came in the form of a man. And so we need to remember that Jesus laid down a whole lot more rights than you'll ever have. And he did it willingly for the joy that was before him, even though he despised the cross. I mean, that's the idea, is we're always about taking up our rights, and that's my right. And it's like, yeah, you can have even Christian rights, but you have the freedom to lay them down. You have the freedom to do something you think is foolish if it's going to win the lost. And that's, I think, a big part of it, is that, we were talking about the evil person, and I would even say the weaker brethren, right? Paul, who knew his right to eat meat, said he would never eat meat again if it caused his brother to stumble. 1 Corinthians 10, I think so. And so here we have someone trying to take away your rights, something that is absolutely biblically yours. Exodus 22, the cloak, can't take it. But Jesus says, give it. Just give it. And then in 41, whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. I know it would make me sound very smart if I remembered the Latin name for this law, but there was a Latin law under Roman rule where they could simply touch you on the shoulder and you would have to carry something for them. And it was an easy way for Roman soldiers to get help. Anyone in the Roman Empire got understood. Tap you on the shoulder, you got to carry this. And the distance was 1 mile. More than likely, this is how Simon the Cyrene was compelled to bear the cross for Jesus. And so again, there's a Latin phrase. I'm going to write that down and remember it one day. But regardless, here's the deal, is the Romans didn't say you had to be happy when you carried it. You just had to carry it. And quite often, we can be quite ornery when God asks us to do things, or when we're expected to do things. And honestly, our attitudes are important. You know what it means when the Bible says to do all things as unto the Lord, and elsewhere saying to do all things without complaining and disputing. Now, last I checked, all means all. Everything you do, don't complain. Don't argue and dispute about it. You see, when we disobey the Bible, that's called sin and disobedience, right? That's, a transgression, and straight up could be, not iniquity. What was I looking for? Or it could be a trespass, and it can be a transgression. There we go. And the point is that This is one of your children's first memory verses, Philippians 2:14, do all things without complaining and disputing. And I remind my children that's sin. Like, your children, if they do what you told them to do, but with a bad attitude, it's still sin and it still needs to be dealt with as if they didn't even do the task. Jesus tells them if they compel you to go 1 mile, go with them 2. The very thing you would like to complain about doing, Jesus says, do it with a good attitude and do it twice. Double it. Go further. Blow someone's mind that you're willing to do more than what is expected of you. Well, I was only expecting them to do this. Yeah, but I'm going to do that. And then he kind of just summarizes it. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. And I think a good cross-reference is in chapter 6, verse 21. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And maybe that's this whole section. Jesus speaking very literally of money in chapter 6, verse 21. But in these verses we've covered, and this is kind of lengthy because we have a lot in here. But guys, turning the other cheek. Someone has offended you. Don't they know who they're talking to? You're a big deal. Like, how dare someone ever insult you? Do they know who you are? And so we have to think about this. And maybe you don't feel that way, but I know my flesh does. I like to be transparent. I'm not saying this is the way I always am, but no. Deep down, I know what it's like when someone insults me. Do you not know who I am? Like, that's the way my body naturally wants to respond. Where's my heart at? My treasure? Oh, it's me. I love myself. I am selfish and self-centered, as you guys are too. And my stuff, my rights. Someone's going to take my tunic and my cloak? Like, no, those are mine. Again, me, my. You asked me to go do work? That's what all these things revolve around. This whole section of text really just revolves around selfishness, around self, pride, arrogance, self-centeredness. And Jesus is talking about it. We got to learn to lay our lives down, to sacrifice, to submit, to surrender, and to go the extra mile without complaining. If someone asks, give. They want to borrow, let them have. Don't turn them away. Wherever your treasure is, there your heart is. And some of us, I think if you do enough soul seeking, your treasure is you. You love yourself. And so I've always loved it ever since I heard Joe Focht make the claim or the case. It really rings true, is that some people say that they hate themselves. Well, I don't love myself. I hate myself. And he points out that's utterly false. You all love yourselves. No, I don't. I think I'm ugly. And nobody likes me. Well, if you actually hated yourself, you'd be thankful that you're ugly and no one likes you, right? Because that's what you would wish upon someone whom you hated. If you truly hated someone, which you're not supposed to, then you'd hope that they're ugly and dumb and unliked and poor and running into problems. But me, I love me. And so if I were ugly or dumb or bad or, whatever it may be, bad at something, well, I don't like that because I love me. And so this is just stuff to check our hearts, because you're not going to become perfect practically, as your Father in heaven is perfect. But you can rest assured that you'll stand before God as perfect because of the perfect sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And just because you'll never be practically perfect doesn't mean that the bar has come down at all. That is what you aim for. This is the bar. This is what God has called us to. So as Christians, we ought to aim for it. That is all. Tomorrow we'll have an even heavier, I think, and more convicting text. And today should leave us, thinking about, do I puff up and defend myself when I become offended? The slap in the cheek. Am I fighting for my rights? This is my right. Do I complain when I'm asked to do things and do them well, to do what's expected of me? Or am I willing to go above and beyond? Am I stingy with my things because they're my things and not willing to give? Well, these are all symptoms of just our love of self. And we've been called as Christians to be deniers of self. That said, I'm going to go now and help my children finish up their breakfast. Well, making breakfast. So, God bless you guys. I love you. I will see you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:30, here at the Revival Church. A couple of people didn't get notifications. I don't know. Facebook has glitches all the time. What I can say is if it's 7:31 and you haven't seen anything, you might just open up the Revival Church Facebook page and flick it, or if you're on a PC, hit refresh. Refresh the page, scroll down. If you don't see anything, wait 30 seconds, 7:31 and 30 seconds. Refresh it, check. I'm rarely that much later than 7:31. So I had to get a green shirt, St. Patty's Day. I had to do that. So maybe a minute late. But all right, God bless you guys. Take care. Whew. Click share if you care.